All right, we're back with another episode, but first the sponsors. Head over to www.johnbartoloshow.com. Check out all the sponsors listed there. We got a bunch listed. I want to thank a few of them now because without them, this wouldn't be possible. So special thanks to Gallo Technologies for the walls behind us, Rhino Metals for all the tables and furniture in here, Blackwater Ammunition. Special thanks to Blackwater, Galco Leather Holsters, Volquartsen Firearms, Pulsar. Go check out Pulsar. Thermals and I want to say Thermals and IR have come way down in price. Go check out Pulsar. If you haven't shopped for Pulsar, go check them out. They're at Kenzie's Optics, of course. Microtech Knives. Big thanks to Microtech. Love those guys. Special thanks to them. And, of course, I'd be lying if I missed out them. Enforce Lights. Enforce Weapon Lights for all your dark room needs. Got a special guest today. I'm excited. I'm hyped about this. Everybody's requested him. We got the one and only Danny from Dixon Flannel Company. What's going on, brother?
Yo, I'm honored to be here, man. Thank you so much.
Bro, this is crazy. We've been trying to do this for a minute. It's crazy. It is crazy. So you were like one of those guests that everybody's like, you got to get this guy on, man. He's so fucking cool. And I'm like, all right. Like, you know, I'm in a daze. Like I'm obsessed with all things, you know, firearms, action sports, everything. And I'm like, flannels. Now I own one. Full disclaimer. I do own one. I love the brand and I love what you've done and I love how you've crossed over into so many different markets. And there's so much deep shit I want to get into. But first, for the listeners, I want you to kind of get into how you even got into this business.
Oh, man. That's a loaded question.
I know, but how did this even happen?
Let's do it. So, I mean, first off, I want to say again, I'm honored to be here because, I mean, looking at your list of guests, I was nervous as fuck coming here. I'm not going to lie.
Stop it.
You have some incredible people on here. So
who was your favorite that you saw on the list?
I can't even name a favorite. I was just going through it and I was like, oh my God. I was like, these guys are really fucking good at what they do.
It's a hit squad. It's a murderer's row.
For sure. Like if you want to make an army, I can go through like your list of guests and I'll be like, yep, that one.
I have my friends at other brands say it all the time. They're like, dude, your guests are like on par with Rogan's. Like they're like fucking good.
Seriously.
And now I have you.
I'm, like I said, honored to be here.
No, I'm flattered you came. I mean, you were easy once we got down to it. So because you're a fashionable guy, how did you get into this business? And I know that's like, I'm going to get deep with you in this, but how did you get into this? What made you want to do a clothing brand?
So in 2013, my pops and I still owned a motorcycle shop in Irvine, California.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just a small shop, like super small, like mom and pop shop. And we did all Harley stuff, dirt bike stuff, everything. And I just wanted to get some flannels for the shop. Mm-hmm. And I was just like, we need to have some good flannels and blah, blah, blah. So I was like reaching out to a couple other clothing companies to give me some samples and stuff. And everything just like washed up like shit. It shrinks and wrinkles, all this kind of stuff. And so then I kind of got like obsessed with this journey of like finding the best one.
Right.
And I didn't know anything about fashion at the time. I never went to fit them or anything like that. I'm still like,
I'm better off.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And like I'm a high school dropout. I signed myself out like when I was 18. I mean, I was always, decently intelligent, but just like fitting in that box is just never my thing.
Mm.
And so basically from there, I just kind of got obsessed with it and just like, through research and finding out everything, we started out with like these blanks that we found that we figured were the best blanks. And when I say we, to be honest with you, you're going to hear me say this over and over again. It is just me. Like it's just more comfortable to say we when you're by yourself.
Of course.
I think that any beginning entrepreneur can say that. They're just like you're almost embarrassed to say that it's just you, right?
Right.
So at the time I have a Scion and I just have like, these crates in the back of the Scion and I'm just like selling them outside of the shop and they're basically like
total bootleg.
Yeah. And my friend's girlfriend was like hand sewing our tags into these blanks. And just because we're just trying to brand and, get on Instagram, like gain some following through Harleys mostly. And then it just kind of like, progressively started to take off. Moved out to Arizona, moved my family out there and worked for Harley. I was working like 60 hours a week at Harley doing Dixon on the side.
Right.
And just slowly just branding, And it is that just typical like grind all fucking day for the man and then go back home at night. Take care of the kids, and me and the wife at the time were just like shipping out orders, all night, sleeping 4 hours a fucking night for years,
It's crazy. And, people only see the end product, right? They only see like the success. And that's when people come around. And I've talked to a lot of self-made entrepreneurs about this. And they only see when you win the belt. Like if you're a UFC fight, they see that. They don't see the hundreds of nights boxing stuff by yourself, going through materials, learning as you go, fucking up. They don't see any of that. There's a lot of those nights.
So many, man. So many.
You remember them.
Oh, I remember them fucking clearly. Like so much so that like when I have staff meetings and I try to like, I mean, because we have like 60 employees now.
Right.
And when I try to tell some of these younger guys like what I went through, dude, I get fucking tears in my eyes, man. It was fucking
I would.
hard, you know? And it's just like the fighters, just like you were saying, it's like no one sees that shit. They don't see the months and months of fucking training these guys go, years, you know?
I had Heath Evans, who played for the Patriots and the New Orleans Saints, say to me once, he goes, people see when you get like a free meal from Icon Meals, one of the meal companies, they don't see the hours that were put in to get to that point where that's offered to you. Like they love to say like, you get so much free shit, right? Or like they're like, I'm like, you don't realize I was a CEO of a guy. I've been around this business for forever, you know? And you earn that through years and years and years of working. I mean, it's just work at the end of the day.
Trudging to build a platform, use your platform, and then become, you know, marketable, basically. And then they look at it as free. It's complimentary, but guys like me and you know that the work that goes behind it. I take that shit seriously. If someone gives me something, like I'm gonna put all the force behind it that I can if I believe in it, you know?
I got a 3-ring circus in here. It's I've done 330 of these episodes. That's a lot of guests. That's a lot of stories. I mean, I know Rogan's got 1,400 or whatever, but it's a lot in a 2-year span, you know?
Absolutely, man.
It's crazy. I tell everybody, I'm like, there's 365 days in a year. You go out and book 350, 360 people. I'm like, you try and do that. It's not easy.
Exactly.
And I do it on referral only. You know, it's only like people send me people now. So it kind of became a thing, you know, like whatever. It's rare that I get somebody like you that everybody's like, gotta have this guy on. So I appreciate it. But, you know, I'm amazed when I look at your brand at how it's affected so many genres. And I have a theory on it. This is where we go deep. I have a theory that whether it's the social suppression, identity, I know you don't want me to use the word, but identity politics, a lot of different things. I think your brand represents strong people. It represents manliness. It represents womanliness. It represents strength. And I think that's something that people crave right now.
Oh, we need it.
We need it more than ever. And it's not a political, it's a sociological conversation. I think people crave that type of thing. And when I see someone in a flannel, they look strong, you know, like they're confident. And I think that has something to do with it. And I think people crave that confidence. And that's one of the contributors to your success too.
Absolutely. I mean, when I get these kind of messages from people that are just like, they're like, this is the only time in my life that I've ever put something on and then I go out and I get compliments. I get compliments from other guys, you know, girls, whatever, you know. And so building those people's confidence is great in that aspect. Now, outside of that, on a marketing aspect, building each other up, the positivity, that's what I always want my brand to, you know, I basically started saying like, hey, no one's speaking to us. Like we're kind of misfits. We're a little bit out here. We're kind of outside the box. And now, you know, we're kind of all over the place and we're in so many different genres, but we still represent that positivity of building each other up. You know, it's like on the Vixen side for the women, it's like, it's all about like, you know, instead of tearing each other down, like supporting each other, making community, and
they'll kill each other.
Worse.
No, that's the worst. They pull out the fangs. But you're right, and part of that is because embedded in our culture the last couple of years, and I hope it changes going forward. It's starting to change. I have theories. I see that it's starting to change a little bit sociologically, but the theory has been you're successful, and because of your success, that's why I'm failing.
Right.
And that's the wrong mentality.
100%.
Instead of saying, bro, you're doing it right, you're crushing it. I want to come sleep on your couch and help you be successful, and I want to learn. That's the mentality people should have.
Instead, I get messages like 20 a day, and they're like, hey, I'd love to pick your brain. You're like, you know?
It's hard to sift through that. Yeah, you want to say yes.
Yeah, I want to help people, but the thing is like, I think about it 6 years ago, like, would I hit up Andy Friscilla and be like, what's up, bro? Like, can you fucking like just give me the secret?
Andy probably answer you too. He probably give you a 3-hour answer.
Yeah.
The thing is with that, like I get a lot of the if you need a guest. That's my favorite one. If you need a guest,
I'm just trying to help you out.
If you need a like, I'm like, do you really? I've had 6 congressmen. Do you really think I need a guest? You know, I'm like, are you kidding me? But and I appreciate it, and you do go through them, and I do respectfully answer some of those people when I can, and I try to go through it. Marcy helps me go through it. A lot of people help me go through it here in the studio. But it's sifting through and seeing where your time spent, because your time is like an energy bar, just like in Street Fighter or when you played video games. It's like an energy bar, and you only have so much energy, right? That's a jiu-jitsu reference anyway. Absolutely. But like you only have so much energy. Once you use that bar, there's no more energy, and people have to go home and function. Like we don't just sit and answer Instagram messages or DMs or emails all day. If we did, we'd have no time. I have a joke I put in my stories all the time that I have like 800 unread text messages. I do the best I can to get through them. But it's hard. And when you run a successful business that you built, it becomes your baby.
Oh, yeah,
and
100%.
It's like it's literally like a baby. I'm sure you've had offers to people try to buy you, make you a house brand, or do this or do that, or partner with, you know, and you've kept it, the integrity of it, and you've kept it where it belongs. And it's reached into so many different genres, whether it's the shooting industry, the action sports industry, cars, everything. You've touched everything, and you've become a staple in all those different industries. Do you feel like flannels and the button-up shirt was something that just was missing out there? Did you ever like have that epiphany, or were you just like, I'm gonna go with this just because I like it?
It was more like, I feel that every great brand, every great company starts with the why, right? And most people are going to look at it and they start with the what. Like, start with the flannel. And it's like, no, you're looking at it all wrong. Like, the why was, let's fix a problem. And so every product that I put out, I try to fix a problem. And so, like, you know, our button-up shirts are made out of bamboo. You know, we try to make everything like wrinkle-free and shrink-resistant and that kind of stuff. Because the thing is, like,
perfect
guys
for
like
a guy.
Exactly, like guys like me, like I don't have time for laundry. Like I don't have time for that shit. You know, it's like, or I just want to be able to pack something in a bag. And if you're traveling a lot, or like you throw it in your Harley, you throw it in your bag and you pull it out and you still, you know,
it's good to go.
You still look like 10 out of 10 and you feel like $1 million, you know, like that was kind of what I was after. But at the same time, what I really wanted to do was starting out and make a difference. And what I always tell my staff is that we grow to grow support. And so every year we're able to give more and more to charity. We're able to do more and more. We always do like stuff with, you know, like inner city youth, giving out skateboards, giving them outlets.
Yeah.
And the things that saved me, I feel like, you know, and, you know, through music and, you know, extreme sports and all that kind of stuff. And so that's what I really wanted to get down to. And this kind of provided the vehicle to do so. And so at the end of the day, although I love the product, the thing that fulfills me is the charity stuff. The thing that fulfills me is making a difference, like in my staff's life. And I really like focus on their growth, their internal growth as we go through that. I love so that. Important because that makes that culture, you know.
I love seeing that. Like when I look at certain business owners, like they're giving employees cars, or they give them like a crazy bonus, or someone's retiring. I just saw one business owner, he gave his employee his old car, you know. It's like stuff like that is fucking cool, and being able to take care of people, especially in your community, and doing it yourself. Right. You know, handing it to the people yourself is what's really cool. And if you can do something like that and partnering with the community, really becoming a community partner is what's something that's lasting, you know. And that's what gets lost when it starts to get to that corporate level and everything else. You lose that touch, and you're putting people to work.
Yes.
Which is the key.
Absolutely.
You know, and I'm sure through all this with online shopping and everything else going crazy, it's scary, right? It's a scary time. You're like, oh God, what's going on? You know, one day's good, one day's probably terrible, you know, so you're trying to figure it all out, and people don't realize the pressure that's involved in that. And it's terrifying. I know for brands like yours, and I don't want to say another one that sponsors the show, but you know, Vegas gets on people's radar that they want to put, like, you know, because target shopping destinations is down, but there are still pockets where people want to have like a place, and it's mainly for shipping and for back end stuff to make it a little bit easier, another outlet to display their goods. But it's scary, you know, it's so scary. And how do you navigate that, right? Especially in the soft goods game, because that's so crazy, right?
It really is. And it's it's a saturated market. Like a lot of people say, like, hey, well, you inspired me. I want to do a clothing brand. And I'm like,
you're like, don't.
Fucking
you're like, don't do it.
You're like, you can buy a bar, and the bars are one of the number one failing businesses that you could buy, right? Well, clothing is like right in front of it.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, it's hard. It's so hard to make that. And, you know, I just never really stop and look at it. And when I have conversations like this, I look back and I'm just like, holy fuck, I can't believe we were able to pull this off.
Right. It's crazy. Soft goods is like, that's the number one thing. I had Bruce Cardenas from Quest Bar in here, and he says it all the time. He's like, you want to fail, start a t-shirt company, start a clothing company, because it's so saturated. Absolutely. But I think you were in that unique niche because of what I said earlier and how you touched those markets and that symbol of strength. You know, you really made wearing a collar cool again.
Right.
A lot of people weren't wearing collared shirts. That was fading out. People just essentially wore a t-shirt and jeans. That was the costume for everybody. You know, I always say costume, but that was everybody's costume. That was their go-to. And you kind of brought that back and said, no, a button-up can be a chill thing that everyone can wear. And you brought that back in vogue, and that's not an easy thing to do.
Absolutely. I think that one of the things, our biggest attributes to the success was being organic. And that is so fucking important. Like I think you could say the same thing for firearms industry as well, because it's like it's exploding and there's so much saturation and everything, but you start seeing through, you know, what's real and what's 100%. Fake. And so when I get into these different markets and everything, the best part about it was I was into all these things. I loved all these things. Right. And so it became so organic because it was like, we're not trying to fake the funk. We're not trying to get into things. These are the things that inspired me. These are the places where I'm from. And we're able to serve those markets, which gives back to us. And you could feel it because it's fucking real.
When did you feel like you made it? When was like your aha moment that you had something? You know what I mean? Like, you're like, it doesn't have to be like, oh, I went and bought a Lambo or something. But like, when did you feel like, okay, we got something? Was it when you got 20 orders? When you got 50? Was it when you went and bought a warehouse? What?
I don't think I've felt it yet, to be honest with you.
That's a good thing.
And because it's just, I've never gotten to this spot where I'm like, oh, fuck, everything's going to be okay. I still operate out of starvation. You know, it's like I still just go hard as fuck. Like I feel like it's, you know, it's the first day of the rest of my life every day. And I think that that's key because, you know, a lot of people, they reach a spot and then from the outside looking in, they're like, hey, dude, you drive a fucking Rolls Royce. And I'm just like, you know what? Like with recent things going on in my life, like that thing sits in a garage all the time because I just focus on simplicity and like my brand and being a father, obviously. Yeah. And then the thing is that I'm just as hungry as I was when I was younger.
That's important.
It's so fucking important. And that's the reason when you get offers like, you know, to be bought out and like you were saying earlier, it's your baby, man, to see somebody destroy my baby, oh, I'd be fucked. I don't know what I would do. Like so the hardest part, I think, of being a brand builder, and I think that a lot of people probably go through this, you know, when you're 10 years in, when you're 12 years in, is trying to separate yourself and find yourself from, am I just this brand? Or like, you know, where did I end? You know, because you just, you dive into it and it becomes you. Yeah. And you have to like at some point kind of like separate yourself. And that's a tough fucking thing.
It's a hard thing.
You know, it's like, and so you get to this point where I realize it's not about the money. I don't even look at the fucking bank account. I don't look at, like, I look at the sales and I'm driven by goals. However, my goal is to like keep on creating, like how far can I fucking push this? And I'm still going to go harder, still going to hit it, you know? So
what's your process for doing a design or coming up with an idea?
So much has changed in the past year. Before it was basically the three of us running all production, all design, and all new products and everything. It's just three of us. And then about a year, like 6 months ago, now we have an in-house art team, you know, that hand draws like all the images and stuff that are like on our t-shirts. That's really cool. They're super, super talented. It's really cool. And then, you know, now we have like production assistants and stuff like that. It just makes it easier because of, you know, how much stuff we put out now. I mean, we do like 2-3 releases a week. And,
it's wild.
It's so basically where it has always started was like, we'd come up with like cool color combo. We'd start talking about, I used to do it all myself, but you know, it became like a collaboration of the three of us. And we would look at it and it's like, how does this inspire me? Or we'd start with a core idea of like, I want to do a flannel like based on like, you know, this beach that changed my life, you know, kind of thing. And we bring in the elements of that and try to portray it into a plaid pattern and then tell a story. And so that was a big part of it too, because as you look at these names and everything, you see parts of me. and sometimes I take the time and actually explain the whole deal and let everyone see it. But you know, as everything's just gotten crazier, I don't get as much time to do that. But when I look back on them all and I see all of them, it's like it's crazy. It's like a story of my life,
right?
You know, and so that is what also kept it so organic.
Yeah,
you know, it means the fucking world to us because the whole thing just like tells this whole story of me, tells the whole story of like Chris Jones, like our main designer. He used to be a pro skateboarder and stuff like that. And man, I mean, we just bootstrapped the fuck out of our company.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was actually talking to someone last night. You know, so for you listeners, we're out in Vegas right now. So
yeah,
they brought me out like a kid to the candy
store. You're in the Thunderdome.
So I was talking to someone about it last night, and like there was a point where our first custom line, I was down to $28 in my account. I didn't want to tell Chris. All my fucking credit cards are maxed out, you know, and like I made sure he was still paid. I've never missed a fucking paycheck for anybody. I always operate that way. Take care of everyone first, you know, I'm last. But I'm gonna outwork everyone every single fucking time. And that was like one of those days that I still look back to that now, and I just try to operate that way. Like that was a sink or fucking swim moment. Right. And it's like, instead of getting cushy on the couch and like relaxing and shit like that, like I still want to operate like that.
Yeah, but it's hard to do.
It really
and
is.
I think about like whether it's guys like Steve Jobs, and you hear these stories about how they live in houses with no furniture, like they're quirky. And you hear about even Elon Musk, you know, selling a lot of his possessions, and he lives a very simple. There's something to be said about keeping it really simple.
Yes.
You know, and
Absolutely.
The more simple you keep it, like if you don't need for a lot of things, you never need anything.
Absolutely.
You know, and if you live that way, so it's hard to do, right? Like it's very hard to do. Like a lot of people don't understand. They're like, I don't get that. You know, he should be in a 10,000 square foot house, and he should have 75 cars, and he should have this, and he should have that. Well, if you do that and you start to get that feeling like you don't need for anything, you know, then you lose that hunger. You lose the eye of the tiger a little bit. And
absolutely, yeah,
you start scrambling. So I think it's important to keep that in some aspects of your life. Like you might like to drive a nice car, and I could be wrong. You could tell me. You might like to, like I love people. I wouldn't have started a podcast if I didn't love people, and I love interacting with people and spending time with them. And to me, that 1 hour that I put the phone away, I learned something from that person, and I hope that they leave and learn something from me, because that art of engagement and communication is such a dying art that I feel like podcasting are saving it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So you have to keep that part of you that wants to die, wants to feel satisfied, wants to feel fulfilled. You have to keep that cup full, and the only way to keep it full is to deprive yourself sometimes. Like you hear these stories about guys that never take a vacation, you know, they never do. You have to, like, we do like mini vacations, like a little trip out to Vegas or something, you know, but you have to keep that hunger in some aspect of your life.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Keep it alive.
I 100% agree. And I think there was a point, I want to say year or two ago, that was really hard for me. And the reason why is like, we have these Facebook groups of people that are like obsessed with the product, which is so incredible. You know, I'm so honored that there's people out there that are that hungry for it, you know, but they become these communities of negativity.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really hard for me because I was like, dude, we are trying to do something positive, and you're creating negativity. And at first I just paid too much attention to it. Like all those comments got to me, and everything like was screenshot, and like people were sending it to me, and it fucking irked me. And then after going through my divorce, like I just learned, I was like, hey, business keeps on going. I have to keep on going.
Right.
You know, it's like, and then I learned to truly, like, I don't give a fuck anymore. Like it's about me and how hungry I am and what I can give to my people. And the people that get it, they get it, and I keep it positive, and we move on. But just like you were saying, that art of engagement and people talking, you have to have the open mind and the perspective to be able to get there. You can't force everyone to get there. But when you get to connect with people that are like-minded, it's just fucking gold.
You take a fandom, Danny, like Star Wars, for example, right? I know I'm going to pick a cheesy one, but take a fandom like Star Wars. And it's funny because I have Yoda and Darth Vader over my head, but you take a fandom like that, there's so much flying around, right? There's 900 YouTube pages, there's everything, so much content, right? And that's a rabid fandom. And you have to balance it between listening to the fandom and giving them what they want, but not doing too much fan service, right? To
Absolutely.
where you're doing what you feel caters to the fandom. But you also have to be fresh, and you have to say, listen, we have to take chances. You know, there's times we just have to take chances as a brand. and do different things. You can't just listen to the fandom all the time, because that's going to sometimes become an echo chamber, right? Like if somebody comes up with a brilliant idea, and I say this to everybody listening, everything looks brilliant from 20 feet away and 20 seconds after the fact, right? Everybody can predict the winner after the game. You know, so it's easy to do that. And I call it like shooting from the cheap seats, right? Like, well, that didn't cost you anything to make that decision. That didn't cost you anything to have that opinion. I appreciate it. You take it as feedback, but you have to take it with the proverbial grain of salt too.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I look at it as like imagine the biggest fucking arena that there is, and you got the players on the field. And I mean, you got 20,000 people yelling at them what they should be doing. And then you got 20 players. That's it. So what I try to concentrate on is on the players. Like the players that are out there making a difference, that are fucking grinding every day, like the people that are on your show. You know, it's like, that's the people that I'm going to take the opinion in. I'm going to like, you know, talk with them about it. And because we get so much feedback that you should do this, you should do this, you should do this. And I just started ignoring it, because it's like, if I did that, then I become the brand that we didn't start. And if we started a brand and it is organic and everything came from within, that's the path that we keep on going. And the day that we fucking reach that it's out of us and we reach to make a buck, we reach to get a new genre or something like that, and it's not organic, that's when I feel I've lost. And so for me, it's like, it's all about keeping that shit fucking real.
Keeping it real. Yeah. It's wild, because, you know, somebody said something to me and it shifted my thinking a little bit with this pre-COVID, post-COVID working environment. You know, they said when COVID hit, Dana White got everybody in a room. And Dana's a really good case study, because he's very real. And he said, my 100% goal is to keep all of you working.
Right.
That is my 100% goal, first and above all, is to keep everybody working and to keep this thing moving forward. And that, I feel people sometimes in the fandom, or people sometimes, you know, and you need them, they have to understand, you have 60 souls that rely on you. And your goal is to keep them moving forward right now.
Always.
In time, yeah, the fandom might overcome and win, and they get their say, and you come out with like some crazy beanie or whatever the fuck, sneakers, whatever they're looking for to consume, right? Because they want to consume so much of the brand. But your goal right now is to honor the employees and keep that moving forward till you dig out of this and keep the paychecks coming. You know, I hear about companies doing like, you know, time off as they want it, you know, giving them space, you know, they call it like on vacation, like unlimited vacation time. You know, they could take time right now. They might not get paid, but they're still working, you know, they can come back in, and people are doing what they got to do. And people don't realize you're juggling chainsaws, flaming chainsaws, and you're trying to keep it all moving forward. That's the way I look at it. And it's easy from a Reddit, you know, thread, or from a Facebook chat group. Oh, you know, Dixon should come out with an airplane. You know, everybody would buy it. They should come out. You know, they should come out with 50 midgets. Everybody would. And you're like, you sit back and you're like, dude, like, what the fuck? Like, that's not practical. It's a cool idea. Like, they should have jumpy houses. There should be Dixon jumpy houses. And it's rabid, right? It's not practical. And you're like, geez, we'd love. It's like Sig's Hour, right? The running joke at Sig. And I love you, Tom, but you know, but the running joke at Sig was when they came out with the dog raincoats. Like, who the fuck needs a 6 hour dog raincoat? But it was just a thing, you know, and that was a running joke in the gun business. What the fuck are they doing with dog raincoats? But you have to have those things sometimes that they call satisfies the fandom. You know, it's like, we'll give them, they want leashes, we'll give them fucking leashes.
Give them the fucking leashes.
You just don't want to jump the shark and just do stuff to do it, right?
Right.
That's the key thing. Have you ever... Tell me about some ideas that were just terrible ideas you shot down, because I know the shit that comes across your desk, because I've heard people say they should come out with this, you know.
It's constant thing about flannel sheets, and I'm just like, I'm like, listen, I don't want to lay on this flannel. It's great to wear.
Be $1 million idea though.
Yeah, I mean, but it's like one of those things. It's like, you need to do flannel sheets. You guys. So we are entertaining the dog thing. Like, we've been working on it for a fucking while. And I'll tell you right now, trying to get women's clothing down, that was hard as fuck. But trying to get dogs down, I don't even know how you...
That's a weird market.
It's so weird. I like tried all this shit on pit bulls, and then I put it on a bulldog, and then like a Rottweiler, and I'm just like, oh my God, let's just go. Like, women's clothing was easier than this. Yeah. But, you know, it's... We get the craziest fucking ideas. So a lot of it's like team based too. And like, you know, like just like politics, like we can't get into sports, like, you know, it's not so big here, like us on the West, but like when you go to Midwest and East Coast, like you can't fucking put out a sports team flannel that they don't like.
Right,
Like
right.
they're straight up like
100%.
Fuck you, I'm unfollowing you. You're like,
yeah, I hate you. I hope you die. But it is interesting because you could begin to encroach on that LL Bean market. That's what's interesting.
Yes. So the really interesting thing for me is like, so at our warehouse, at our headquarters, we have a retail storefront. I think it's like, I don't know, probably like 3,000 square feet.
Like a stage store.
So, yeah, something like that. So it's pretty cool storefront though. And it's always been operated Monday through Friday because I always wanted my people to have time off for the, you know, on the weekends for the kids and stuff. You know, we're so family oriented like that. And so we just never took it seriously. I just never looked at it as a retail market, but it was more like, hey, you see Instagram, so if you're in, you know,
your showroom type setup.
If you're in town, come see it, and you'll find out that it's fucking real. Like everything that you see is like, it's not a front. Like you can come in here and you'll feel it. And so, but it's gotten fucking huge. It's crazy. Like we have a lot of people like Ubering from the airport over to us, like when they take a vacation anywhere near Phoenix, you know. And the coolest part about it though is like when I do take the time to walk out there and I'll just like sit there for like an hour and watch who comes through the door.
Yeah.
You used to like look at it and
it's market
like,
research.
Yeah,
right
yeah,
in front of you.
Absolutely. And like you used to like look at the customer base and you think that they all look like me and they like, you know, just look like a bunch of my friends or something. Like we're all like wearing the same, you know, costume as you call it.
It's a costume. That's why I call it a costume.
But like now it's like we have like doctors, lawyers, like dentists, you know, like all walks of life. And that is so cool because then now I get to connect with those people and learn from them. And those are people like, to be completely honest with you, I realized later that from my insecurity, I just thought that I wasn't good enough for them. You know, I just figured like I'm some punk ass kid or something. Now I get to learn from incredible people. And then they also want to learn from me.
It's the argument, Danny, I always get into with the firearms business because they, for years, tried to cram down our throat that a gun owner was an ex-Navy SEAL, was a ninja, door gunner, whatever you want to call it. And I used to say, no, the Special Forces community is about 2,000 people. Do you want to sell 2,000 guns or do you want to sell 20,000 guns? Right. So that was always a fatal flaw of the gun industry. And I know you know what I'm talking about because we're in a similar age bracket where, you know, for years you'd go into a gun shop or an outdoor shop and it was always the beard and the costume, the whole getup. And I'm like, well, that's not entirely accurate. And then, of course, like people like Neil Ready Gunner come along and Buff Cookie as well. You know, people come along and they're like, nah, man, I just want to wear some jeans and like a t-shirt. And like, I just want to go, you know, to the range for the day. And then I go home with my family and I get my RV. It's not what they want to portray it. And I used to say, you know, when I was executive in the gun business, I still have roles. I used to say the gun business isn't, you know, that's not what it is. That's not really at the core of it. I know you want it to be, and if I hear one more company say, but Navy SEALs use it, I'm going to throw up. It's it's the worst marketing plan in history. It's like, who fucking wrote your marketing plan? Stevie Wonder, the Marx Brothers? Like, what the fuck is wrong with you?
You're so fucking right. And that's something that a lot of entrepreneurs, if there's any entrepreneurs who listen to the show, which I'm sure there's a ton, you have to think about that shit. Like, I used to do this for Harley, and I would, you know, preach to them. I was like, you guys keep on looking at it like it's 3 demos. Like, you guys have 8. You know, it's like, you really break it down into the different styles and how you serve them. Like they're always dismissing the young market, and then they'll go 100% into the young market, and it's like you forget all the other ones. And it's like, bro, there's so many fucking pieces to it. You can't pigeonhole yourself ever in business. You know, you have to open your mind.
It's like what cracks me up is, I bring it up all the time. It's like when I'll say to a company, okay, where I'll be in a back room at church. I'm in a secret room and I'm in a lair and I'm with an owner and some other guy who's 100, and I'll say like, you know, where's your largest audience? And they'll say, well, we have an email mailing list and we have Instagram, and Instagram has 50,000. I'm like, who manages your Instagram? And we have like my nephew, Phil, run it. And I'm like, so you give the largest portion of your audience to the person you deem the biggest moron in the room, you know, like, oh, it's some 21-year-old flunky that he runs it, you know, why? Yeah. And I'm like, what do you mean why? You know, I'm like, that makes no sense.
That is your image across the board. You know, it's so fucking important. Just a year ago, I finally gave up my Instagram. Like,
because it's that important.
It's so important. I ran it myself for 7 years and, you know, answered every fucking question, answered every fucking comment. And now, Elena, she's fucking phenomenal at her marketing.
Yeah.
She's so good. She's like 25 years old. She's like an old soul, but she fucking kills it. But it took the perfect person for them to pry it from my fucking fingers.
Wow. And that's how it should be. And I'll say, what's your content creation plan for that? And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, they're like, oh, we're going to go to the range next week and we're going to do a mag dump or something. You know, and I'm like, what? That's why the running joke with the show is that your marketing plan cannot be mag dumps in a desert. That's not a marketing plan. You know, I mean, give me a fucking break. But that's one of the pitfalls of businesses. They reach a point and they'll say, you know, like you said, they limit their demographic. They kind of dumb down their largest audience and they'll put someone in charge of it. And I'm like, so you give them no budget for content? You don't create your own organic stuff? So basically you want to give your messaging away? Right. I'm like, that makes no sense.
So business in that aspect is much like yourself. Like yourself as a person, you must invest in yourself. You must invest in your business.
100%.
You have to stop looking at like the bottom line like that, because you have to invest in the people, invest in yourself. You know, it's like I was saying, like just like life. You have to take the time to read and feed yourself, and you know, and constantly, you know, thrive and move up. You know, be on that upward trajectory. And if you don't treat yourself and your business the same way, then you're just going to be like fucking everyone else.
Yeah, you got to surround yourself with the right people. I mean, I'm sure you've whittled down your circle. I mean, fuck.
It's never been smaller.
Yeah.
I was joking about this last night, actually.
Zero.
People were like, I'm sure you have so many friends. I'm like, man, I couldn't have a fucking barbecue and like fill with like 10 people.
There'll be a lot of people that'll come for the free meal.
Yeah, like I could put it on Instagram. And
yeah. Everybody wants to be around you when you're putting the steaks on the grill. Right. That's the running joke. Yep. Everybody loves you when you're putting the steaks on the grill. It's when you're not putting the steaks on the grill that you figure out who your friends are.
Absolutely.
100%. And that's I was at a birthday party. I'm not going to name who it was, but I was at a birthday party, and it's funny. I'm there, and Larry Rudolph was there, who manages Britney. There's a lot of bigwigs in the Vegas area, and one of the guys gave a very telling speech. He said, everybody shows up for your 50th when you're a billionaire. And this guy had just bought a plane for himself and the whole bit. But he goes, I'll be there when there's no plane and there's no like he got teary-eyed. It was like a thing. You know, he had been with him forever. And he just kind of said, he's like, you know, when you don't have the real estate, you don't have the plane, you don't have you remember who was standing there with you and who was working with you. And that's one of the things. Like Steve Wozniak, who started Apple, it's famous. You know, he gave, $100 million of his stock to original Apple employees, just gifted it to them. So because, you know, Woz, you know, I mean, he has $1 billion if he has $1. So to him, 100 million, he was like, no, they deserve it. They started with us. They might not be. And I always respected that about guys that understand who's there with them in the beginning.
Absolutely.
And who's packing boxes, you know, and who's the guy who says, don't worry about it. You know, I got you. You know, what do we need to do to get today done, tomorrow, the next day? And helps move the business forward, because those people are the people that are critical and the people that understand your best interest. And that's not always easy to find, you know, like the person who's running your Instagram day in and day out. That is a 24-hour-a-day job. And I've spent the last 10 years explaining that to the gun business. That is a 24-hour-a-day job, managing that, you know, getting the message out there, building and growing, and your brand awareness. I mean, we still go through that struggle in our business, because it's really the separation. I've talked about this, and I want to get your thoughts on it. The separation between, and I call it all action sports, Danny. It's all action sports to me. The separation from the 25-year-old to the 35, 40-year-old and the 50 to 65-year-old, the gap has never been bigger. Right. The gap has never been bigger, the disconnect. So when you get into these bigger brands and you have that 50 to 65-year-old in charge of whatever, widgets, counting dolls in the back room. They don't, you say streaming to them, Danny, you say certain things and they're like, what? Like it is so, they don't understand that a cell phone can power a rocket. Exactly. Like they don't understand, they don't get it. And that people just want to see, what's it like when Dixon Flannels is packing boxes? They don't understand, they just want to consume. Right. What's going on within, you know, they just want to consume media. And essentially now almost every company needs to be a power broker of their own media. And they need to have paywalls, and people will participate. Absolutely. It has never been a better time to participate in all those different things. Yes. And it's real.
The thing is that I think a lot of like new brands, for example, they want to go after everything that they see being done by other people.
Right.
And the players in the game instead are trying to figure out what has not been done. How can we hit them? Now, the older demo, or I'd say the older execs,
Mm-hmm.
what they miss the buck on is that you have to invest in how to work with that generation.
100%.
You have to learn it. It's like goes back to what I was saying before, educating yourself and feeding yourself. You gotta learn how to do it.
If it's a space you're not going to be in, take podcasting, for example. If it's a space you just say, I'm not going to be in that space, you have to look at it like an investment portfolio. Then buy into that space, whether it's through ad structure, whether it's through product structure, get it out of people's mouths. So I look at it as like an audio genre. Just get into that space. How many times has Joe Rogan said, geez, I wear barbell apparel pants, which I know he wears barbell. And I love those guys. They actually just opened a store here. I love all those guys, and I wear their stuff. And that's a good space to get into. If it's Kuyu clothing, just get into the space, in some way, shape, or form. If you have no desire to get into it, it's like looking at an investment portfolio. Well, 10% of our marketing budget should be in spec. We should be always looking at spec. What don't we do effectively that I can get into this year cheaply, inexpensively?
Absolutely.
And how do I get into it? Instead of trying to come up with this grand plan of like, we're just not there yet, get there. But you don't have to water it with a fire hose. Water it with a little bit, a garden hose, and just touch it. You might be crushing it in motorcycles, but weak in, fishing. Might be a weak genre for you. Exactly. How do we touch that genre a little bit more without mortgaging the houses,
Absolutely.
It's really simple to look at, and I think the older generation overthinks it. I think that's one of the big pitfalls. I think they overthink the thought process of like, how do I get into this space? How do I get clothes on this person? Or how do I, get something in this person's hand? It's really simple.
It really is. And it comes down to evolution. Like as a brand, you constantly have to evolve. Like, any company, you have to evolve. As a person, you have to evolve. And, being behind that, like what I try to tell, like, especially like all my top guys, they just kind of already know, but it's like, the only thing consistent here is going to be change. The processes you see right now are not going to be the processes at the end of the year. It's like we have to constantly look at efficiency. We have to constantly look at our marketing. And I think that's, the older generation execs, they overlook that. It's like those words that cost you the most fucking money in business are saying, it's always been done this way.
Yeah.
We've always done
or
it this
ROI.
Way. Yeah.
They love ROI.
Yeah.
Especially in the gun business. Every executive and every engineer, they would come to me and they'd say, John, well, what's our ROI on that from the marketing department? I'd say 0.
Yeah.
And they say, what do you mean?
And you're like, if you said 10%, would that be enough for you? It probably still wouldn't.
Yeah. And I'd say, well, you tell me what you think it should be. Oh, well, we got to get 100% ROI. I said, well, then you're not factoring in the cost of acquisition of a client. And by a client, I mean someone that's with you forever, not a customer. A customer buys once. A client buys forever.
Right.
A customer buys one time and you never see them again. That's a customer. It's a transaction. A client stays with you forever. Like right now, I'm a customer of you guys because I bought one. I own one. I went on the website after I booked, when we first started talking a ways back. Because you're like Kanye, it's like a thing to book you, It's like it's like I gotta get to know you. I gotta get to know the whole staff, and that's a good thing. I like that. But over time, I'm like, wow, he's got a lot of fucking cool shit. I'm like, this is badass. And you start to become indoctrinated into the brand, and you start to learn the brand. You start to learn the people behind it, and you start to love that. And it's not just about, hey, my buddy's the CEO or my friend's this. You start to learn a lot about them, and you start to become, indoctrinated into the brand. And that's what you hope everybody goes through. And it's like I've had Jessica Govin on, other gurus of industry, and they talk about, the brand journey. And you want to go on that brand journey with them. And you have to start to think, what is the best marketing tool to convey that brand journey? How do I take people down that road? Is it our website? Is it YouTube? Is it this? Is it that? And you start to pick those things apart, and you start to say, okay, we got to water this, yeah, we're not quite Nike with a 100-year story,
right?
Or Coca-Cola, but we can start to build into this a little bit. We want to take people down our brand journey. Let's do a 12-part series on YouTube, taking people down that road. And that requires, and this is what the old timers don't realize, that requires being thought out. It requires being laid out and on the storyboards, just like you're making a movie today. And it's a process, and it can be organic and real, but still you have to shape that. and what that looks like.
And it's hard as fuck. I mean, to be honest with you, like I talk to Elena all the time about this, our social media girl. So I'm like, you always have to remember, you sell the we, I show the me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it's like basically trying to separate myself from the brand a little bit, however, still showing it. So like I just try to be as real as possible on my side. And that's
there's
like,
a danger to you being the brand.
Oh yeah, there really is. You know, it's like, and there's people that my message conveys to, you know, that are open-minded and look at things differently, and they learn things from me, and I'm just transparent and I show them everything, the good, the bad, the ugly, all the fucked up shit.
Mm-hmm.
And it needed to be separated from the brand though. And
that's kind of what Andy's done at
Yes.
First Form. Andy's done a lot
absolutely,
of that.
Because it's like, you know, if he says straight up, like, I'm not for fucking everyone. And,
Mm-hmm.
and he's not, you know, but then there's people like me that's the only dude that I ever, like, the first time I heard him talk, it was like, finally there was a voice that spoke to me and woke my ass up. And it was just like, it's fucking crazy now because, like, you know, now me and him would like text back and forth. You know? It's like, but at one point it was just like, I was like, holy shit, this guy is like just spitting truth like no other, you know? But if I tell my mom, like, hey, go listen to Andy's podcast today.
It's not, oh yeah, it's definitely, it's not for mom.
Yeah.
You know? What was crazy was he rebooted his podcast. He like killed the old one. Now he does that 75 hard, and he's in a whole different, you know, he's in a whole different space. You know, he's interesting because he's a lot in that vein of like, I'm gonna do this over here. If you choose to participate in it, great. First Form's here, the Andy Friscilla brand's here, and so on. And if you know the inner workings of that brand, there's a lot of people that have contributed that, and it's how. I will say, because I have a lot of friends that are sponsored by him, it's how he works with his ambassadors, man.
Oh yeah.
I give him so much. I would give him and Sal the most respect for how they work with their people.
You know what I like between the two of them as brothers too is like the dichotomy.
So different. They're so fucking different.
It's so good because like I like watching Sal stuff too. He's like, you know, he's the family man, like ex-athlete, like dude and everything. And and it's cool because they're also transparent. And that's a big thing. And you know, it's like
Sal's a genius. I gotta say that outright. I mean, for Andy's passion, Sal's a wizard. Yes. You know, watching that brand is interesting, and watching your arc. You know, I would say this: Andy and Sal have paved the way for showing how an ambassador program works.
Oh yeah, absolutely,
100%. And that's something you haven't dipped into heavily.
No.
Why?
So I've always wanted to, whenever we get approached by this, I just tell them that I don't feel it's organic in my space. Because for clothing brands out there, it seems like it's the first thing that they go after. So they're like, okay, we'll find this person, as long as like,
and we'll be hot.
And it's like, she's going to put us on her Instagram, blah, blah, blah. Instead, like I looked at it as like, hey, I want to work so fucking hard that even those people that could be ambassadors and that do have the following, they still want to buy my shit even though they can't get it for free. And I'm not saying that that's, you know, like what Sal and Andy are doing because that's not the case. Those people want to be ambassadors because they want to be ambassadors for the best fucking company that's out there, you know?
Right.
And so like I understand that. However, I figured in my game, the slow, long game was what I wanted to do. Instead of like, let's blow up. You know, let's do this. And so in the clothing industry, I just felt like it was better to not.
I think there's two sides to it. I think you're right. I think your approach is 100% right. Build it and let people want to go and buy it. On the same token, I think, you know, looking at First Form, he stayed with, you know, Tony Sentman out of Real World Tactical, Mikey Coonahan. You know, I look at all the guys, and I'm friends with, these are all close personal friends of mine. He stayed with them through everything, you know, long term, long game. And I'm sure that there's points in there where people wanted to go sell whatever, but it's that loyalty both ways that I think, you know, harbors the success. You know,
absolutely.
It's that long approach.
And they're like a huge family. I mean,
yeah,
that once a year deal.
Deal is amazing. Yeah. And I think that that's something that I think, you know, oh man, you got a Southeast stocking. You need an East Boston stocking. Holy shit. I grew up in Boston, so this hits home for me. No Southie. But I think that that's something that wins in the long run too. And I think it goes both ways. And now he's built like a mecca in there, and there's like fucking basketball courts and conference rooms and everything else.
That new building is something else.
Yeah, and I because I think what it lends to, which I'm a big fan of, which is in the end, and something like you have with the store, is that experience. Like when you go to Mark Bell's podcast, Mark has, you know, he has the gym, he has the little store in front, he's got the podcast. It's an experience. Absolutely. And at the end of the day, I obsess over that with brands. I'm like, so what's your end user experience? Because I still think you can have something that brings people in and brings people into the brand. And I don't mean to say people, ambassadors, high-level people that maybe have a big following, maybe they have a big reach, and you can say, we want you to be a part of the brand. Right. And we want to bring you out, and we want to take pictures with you, and we want to take you to lunch, and we want to do all that. And that's where I feel maybe a key executive or yourself ascend to. It's kind of like, you know, we want you to be a part of this. We're not going to pay you $10,000 to model our clothes. That doesn't make a whole hell of a lot of sense, and that's not real. But we'd love to introduce you. Hey, BJ or John or whoever, come out, you know, and we want to, you know, swag you out. We want to, you know, put you in front. So I think it can win. I think it can work.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Whether or not it's something, supplements are a different game, and you can make, you know, $97 on pre-workout, you know, that markup. It's like $4 to make pre-workout. So they're making money hand over fist.
Absolutely.
As they should be. We all want that. But the reality is everybody works it a little different. You know, and I think it can fit for certain people in certain genres. But if you don't need it, because I always tell people too, taking on ambassadors or influencers, it's like adopting a kid.
Right.
Now you adopt them and all their problems and all their BS.
Yeah,
and
anything that they go through personally is reflecting on you.
Yeah, you're going through
insane.
with them.
But one way that I've always looked at this is, so one of the reasons why I look at it that way, and I might get emotional on this. Yeah. So yesterday I found out that one of my mentors is most likely going to pass away, like in the next couple of days, right? And he owned skate shops, like 22 of them. I can't name them just because no one else really got to know what happened. And I was one of the few that got called yesterday. And I pitched my brand for the very first time to that store because he let me. And he was like, bring it in. Like, you know, maybe we'll fucking stock it in all the stores. And it was like, oh my God, this is the big fucking break.
That's the moment. That's the moment.
I made it.
We come up.
Yeah. And so I go in there like thinking that all my shit was legit. Like all my line sheets look great or whatever. Like everything's. I thought I knew everything. And dude, they threw me in the fucking Shark Tank and they ripped me apart. The purchasers were just like, what the fuck is this? Like, are you serious? And I was just like, I even had the money to have probably to produce the goods that they would have even ordered at that point.
Right.
However, I thought I knew everything though. That was a problem. And when I got fucking thrown to the sharks that day, I've never learned so much in my fucking life. And I walked out of there and he called me the next day and he's like, so how did you take that? And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna tell you right now. I was like, I will never ever pitch my brand again. And the reason why is because I'm gonna work so fucking hard that you one day are gonna beg me to let you sell my shit in your store to the point where you have to have it to stay relevant. And I'm going to work hard as fuck until we get there. And so I always took that mentality into everything, and I still do today. And, you know, it's like last week we have Mike Muir sitting there from Suicidal Tendencies, like doing flannels with us. And I can't really say the other band names, that there's some very, very large shit coming on this year. And I have adapted that mentality to think like, if I work hard as fuck, like these people and the right people are going to come to me. I'm going to say no, and people aren't going to like it that much, but it'll get to the point where the right people they're not even being asked yes or not. They're going to come to my doorstep because I make myself so relevant, because I make the brand speak to them and they have no other fucking option. And so that's what we continue to do. And that's the reason why we just kind of like, you know, kind of skirted the ambassador thing, kind of skirted like, we don't get into retail. We say no more than yes. You know, we get hit up, you know, constantly 20 stores a day. Hey, we want to do this. We want to do this. And it's like, I don't want to be saturated. I want to be exclusive. I want to do it my way. I want to be represented by the right people. And that's when you look at the passion over the dollar. And instead of just making those, you know, like say like Buckle hits us up or something like that. And it's like, you have to be able to say no. Am I going to say no to $1 million deal? Fuck yes, I am. I can. You know, and I'm not saying I can because we have the sales to back it up. I'm saying I can because I know that I'm going to work so hard that the right partner comes in.
I think that's the only way to live.
Absolutely.
It's the only way to live. I started saying no with the show, it's interesting. People say, oh, you got a lot of sponsors. You have all this support. I say, go back and look at my history. I worked for a lot of these companies. I did the marketing and the branding for a lot of these companies when they started. I helped them with their packaging. Inforce was in Rhode Island. I was in Boston and New Hampshire. I was working for them, Matt, for years. And Breakthrough Clean, who's in here, a lot of these different brands. And I took a lot of pride in the long-term relationships with these brands and supporting them. And I'm more to these companies than just, hey, go check out this. A lot of these companies I've worked with very closely, and they lean on me as part of their hiring board or part of their this or part of their that. And they'll call me every day I probably had 4 phone calls before you walked in here with different sponsors. They're just picking my brain. Hey, what do you think about this? I was laughed at when I started bringing fitness and bodybuilding into shooting. And I said, but the enemy of our enemy is our friend. And what do you mean? Like, oh, what's with all these fitness guys? We got to be Navy SEALs. We got to be this, rawr. And I'm like, relax, I'm like, if 100, the gun industry is not xenophobic, but I'm like, what's the deal? I mean, I wait and pray for the day that we have people from the gay community shooting guns, coming in here. I'm just dying to have that, there are large growing genres right now, the black community, the women's community in my world. And I'm like, those people should be in it. Everybody should be in ads. Absolutely. That's what you want. And it's very hard, like I said, to get that over on the 60 somethings. It's very hard because they're used to the dusty buckle and boot guy that hops out of a pickup and, the fat guy, and he's got a 1911 and that's the gun industry. It's not the gun industry. I'm constantly breaking those walls down. I got laughed at when I started to bring in MMA fighters. I'm like, these guys all love to shoot. They love to hang out. Self-defense is at their core. Exactly. It's at their core. It's who they are. And they're the most dangerous motherfuckers on the planet with their hands, let alone with a gun. So, I've been constantly battling back those walls and looking at the intersectionality of the different industries. And I constantly pore over that because I host a show that I try to be very diverse and have a lot of different people on from different genres. I've had to learn more about fishing and outdoors and different things in areas I was a little bit weak in. But when you look at, those first moments when you pitch ideas and people think you're crazy, ultimately people say, why did you start a podcast? And I'm like, because it's a big fuck you back to everybody. I'm like, here's my Rolodex. Where's yours? It's amazing, right? I'm like, it's an amazing thing. When I say that to people, and that's the first time I've shared that on air, but it's a big fuck you back to everyone that's like, oh, you don't know. Oh, yeah. I don't know. I got 350 people that have said, you know what? You're so right. Yeah. What do you got?
Absolutely.
I've been in front of the biggest firing squad there is.
And what better fucking fuel for anything?
And I'm always an advocate, and I've had this conversation with Jay Cutler, the bodybuilder. I'm always an advocate of ambassadors and influencers because I think there's a place for them. I do. Absolutely. I genuinely believe that whether it's buying an ad spot or whatever, and people say, well, that's convenient that you say that. I don't have to say that, but I have said no, and I do understand no because I look at something. I had someone come to me and ask the question. It was the first time I was asked it. What do you think the show's worth if we bought it? And that's like that moment where you're like, we want the whole thing. Yeah. And I said, here's what I gave a number, and I didn't shy away from it. But the person very close to me, people know, I was kind of like, but I don't think the time's right, Right. And the reason for that is I'm like, not because Joe sold his show for $100 million or whatever. I know the production value, I know where it is, but I want more time to marinate it and to build it the way that I want to build it. And Mark Zuckerberg said the hardest no was, I believe, when Yahoo offered him $100 million. I believe that was his hardest no, his hardest time that he turned a deal down. And I know, Zuckerberg's not in the favor of a lot of people maybe listening, but there's a lot of hard no's.
Oh, yeah.
They're hard.
Oh, they're fucking hard as fuck.
It's hard,
I've faced the same thing and been asked, like, well, what's your number? Like, what's the number that can take you out? And my number now is very different than what I thought in the first place, but it was because when I got approached at that number, I realized it was like, it's not like, what the fuck am I going to do? It's like,
you don't have to name the company, but what was a hard no?
So hard no for us was 125. And I was just like, you're looking at it and it's like, after taxes and everything, I could live a good life. you know. But the thing was, it doesn't fulfill me though.
Yeah.
Like, what am I gonna fucking do? You know, it's like what fulfills me right now is learning. What fulfills me is seeing, you know, like I said earlier, is seeing my people grow. And so it was very, very fucking hard because you're like, well, okay, well, what if we hit a fucking bad recession after this and we nosedive, or like, what if I just totally fuck this up? You know, because you know, we're all self-taught and we're self-propelled, and you can't know what that feels like until you go through it.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that it's just like you search inside of yourself and you're just like, why do I do what I do? And that's when you find out, is like, is it for the money and the cars and everything else? Or what am I going to do? Like, go sit at home and then spend money to make myself feel good? It's like, that's not what's going to happen. How I'm fulfilled right now is with the people. And so I think it's the same way with you in the show, is that you're not done learning.
Yeah, I'm not. Yeah. And it's hard because people say, well, you know, like you look at Joe's deal, which is a common one people bring up. And I'm like, yeah, but he undersold it. I'm like, the stock went up 4.8%. The owner made, you know, $480 million.
Yeah.
You know, the owner made $480 million on that deal. I'm like, so he kind of now it's hard when you're faced with that multi-generational wealth offer. It's hard. It's very hard. And I could only imagine, you know, at times what maybe Andy goes through, or whatever suitors come to him. It's hard. It's very hard to say no or to back away from those deals, but you look for the right opportunity, not any.
Right.
And
Absolutely.
it's going to be the right opportunity for your people, for the brand. And most of the time that involves, like you look at Dana's situation, that's a beautiful situation where he still gets to be the president of the UFC and he still gets to run it, you know, and if you can get into a situation where you're running it for a few more years and you get to, you know, transition the way that you want to,
right,
that plays a lot into it. Plus you're young, you know, it's kind of like, what other mountains do you want to conquer? You know, what other things do you want to do? You know, you know, do you want to live on a fucking Costa Rican island like Jack? Or
right.
do you want, you know, it just depends. And you have to sort through that, and maybe you're just not ready.
No, not at all. It's like, do I want to go like sit in, you know, outside of Greece on a fucking yacht? Hell yes, I do. But for 7 fucking days, that's it. You know,
yeah.
It's like, I can't do that for 6 months, man.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm just not fulfilled by that. And I'm, you know, I'm kind of like on a weird journey with that lately too. You know, after going through the divorce, it was like, I realized that, you know, I got caught up in this image for a little bit. And it forces you to simplify your life. It forces you to look at yourself. And then you start looking at yourself. You're like, what could I have done differently? Why did I do this? How does this happen? Blah, blah, blah. You know, and if you don't, you know, after you go through something like that, you're disservicing yourself. The worst things that happen in your life, you have to figure out, how do you turn those, you know, problems, you know, into, you know, immediately finding the solutions, but not just the solutions that turn it into a success. And I feel like as CEO, as, you know, anyone out there as a brand builder, that's what you have to remember is number one. And in every aspect of your business, every aspect of your life, you're going to be you're a solution master. That's all you are. And so if you treat your life the same way, you can constantly grow through those things. And you kind of, you know, so what this taught me was simplify it, find happiness within. What do you want? You know, my dad sat down and he's like, what makes you happy?
Right.
And I was like, oh, fuck. I don't know. My brand. I guess,
the hardest,
you know?
yeah. I feel like the hardest thing. Is, you know, I've been a CEO in the gun business 2 times over, so I feel like the hardest thing is anointing someone, and I'll always have respect for the people that gave me that type. Is anointing someone and saying, here it is, because if you can have that master transition plan in place, it's very hard to do that, to anoint someone into that position, to ascend them into that position, because that's when you truly feel like, I got a transition plan in place and I can keep this company for 200 years and we have a success on our hands for the next 200 years, because you're really looking at that multi-generational thing. And you know, that's where you go from $100 million company to $1 billion. You know, like Ron Pena at Quest, when he brought in a CEO, he's like, all right, I'm in over my head, you know, and the CEO came in and was like, you're making the bars. What are you, crazy? You know, I'm going to bring someone else in for that. That's when you start to really, and you know, I look at like people like Grant Cardone and like, that's a gong show. Like, I'm like, what the fuck? You know, it's like, you know, you can't, he's someone that he's the brand and he's the company and it's all the things. So you have to be able to say like, I want to be on the yacht in Greece, but maybe I create a board, maybe I do this, maybe I do that, and I'm able to bring in someone that can help take this to the next level, and I can step over here where I'm not too far removed. I still have a say in some things, I'm still George Lucas behind the curtain, but let Disney take it to where it needs to go.
Absolutely. I agree 100%.
That's the hardest part. That's where, for you, that's where I think the real struggle. I think what your happiness is. I think we all do. Our happiness is on a yacht. Our happiness is doing whatever it is. It's a widget. But I think that the hard part is finding the right person to kind of manage the day-to-day.
Absolutely. And you're totally right. This is something that I've been faced with just recently, actually, because it's like, so I can figure out how to get us to, 50 mil a year. I can figure out how to get us to like about 75 mil a year. At what point am I a disservice to my own company if I don't bring in someone better than me? But the thing is like, I have the recipe for the rest of it, and you have to be confident in yourself, stepping aside and just being like, hey, so what at the end of the day is what do I value most? And that's very important, because we look at customers the same way. What is their value? It's sales 101 basically.
Yeah.
And now when I look at it, it's like, what's my value? My value is my people. So am I going to underserve them if I don't step out of the way?
Right.
And like you said, like that's a fucking hard spot to be in too. Probably maybe even harder than, saying no to the number, because how do you remain intact so that you have the secret sauce that you can give it, but have someone else run all the other shit? And I really look at it as, because I had to face myself and say, what does make me happy? What makes me happy is being creative. And that's what I want to focus on. Now, when everything I get completely inundated with, paperwork and finances and like all the rest of the bullshit that goes along with it, it's like, that's where you lose your magic and the creativity.
Right.
And if that starts becoming too much, then it's time to step aside, start doing the shit that makes you happy, because when you're operating on happiness, obviously the flavor is there.
It's got to be tempting when you look at your line to want to dip into areas that might be in your wheelhouse, but a little bit outside of your wheelhouse. Right. And you got to be looking at that stuff and thinking, like, licking your chops, like, I want to get into this space, but I don't know how.
Right.
When you're thinking about that, and skating was an obvious one, motorcycles, anything with wheels is an obvious one. The gun industry was probably a serendipitous one, like, oh shit, whoa, what, fuck. But like, you're right on the cusp, I feel, of like the outdoors space. You're like kind of knocking on that door. You don't want to force it, but you have to be looking at those things, right? Like, you have to be considering them, because you're not a good businessman if you're not, right? Like,
absolutely.
You got to be kind of like, and sneakers are another interesting one, but that's a fucking boondoggle, right? Yeah. And how do you get into that? Because I had some company, somebody just sent me sneakers. People sent me, for some reason, shoes and backpacks are like something crazy. But backpacks are another one. Like, I was talking to Dana Lynn and Rob about this, because they're like, we're doing a backpack line. And they did like fanny bags and backpacks, and they sent me some, and they're badass. They're simple. Yeah. But do you look at those as like limited runs and kind of like, we'll try it and we'll see how it performs, or like, how do you test the water? That's the curious thing I always have.
So I sometimes can miss the mark, and the reason why is because I'm a perfectionist, and so to a fault, really, because something will come in and like say like slides, slip on like slides, like slides were like, they were so popular for a second, but it was like, I couldn't get out of my own way because I wanted my slides to be the best fucking slides, So it's like constantly like going back. And then you just miss the whole trend, And so what I always try to focus on instead is like the timeless pieces, the things that I can fix a problem. And if I can't fix a problem, I just don't do it. And it's a unique place to be, but I never feel like I'm reaching. I never feel like I'm chasing. I'm fixing something, and it lasts.
If you can't build a better mousetrap, don't bother.
Exactly.
Yeah. I didn't think of it that way, but yeah, that pretty much sums it up. But yeah, I mean, like, I see so simply, like, I mean, I'm sure you've thought of this, like doing a backpack that's like a flannel design or something. Like, but like, I mean, you must look at those ideas and be like, this is fucking stupid, Like,
well, it gets to the point where people are like, make a flannel this, and I'm like, do you know how fucking sick of plaid that I am? Yeah, at the end of the day, it's like I close my eyes and I see that shit.
And you can't say that out loud though, right? Like, you can't, but they don't understand. You're seeing it constantly.
Right.
You know what I mean? You're seeing it constantly, and you don't want to go the way of like I look at brands like Tommy Bahama, for example, which is probably one you've studied, because you follow that arc. It's beachwear, right? And it's like, when are we getting, like you said earlier, when are we getting out of our genre? When have we gone too far? When am I trying to build a mousetrap for something that's already built perfectly and it's just too much? You know, I don't want to necessarily do camo. Like, camo is the most overplayed shit ever, right? Like, everybody will do a camo line. Well, whoa, you thought of the, you know, way to invent oxygen, right?
Yeah, right.
And that's what I think made you so successful in the gun industry, is because everybody's trying to do camo differently, and you came in and you were like, oh, fuck that. The average person just wears, you know, like a flannel or a t-shirt and jeans, and you totally fit that model, and it makes all the sense in the world. And you must be laughing because they're in the gun industry, they're still trying to figure out jeans. I mean, it's call me a liar. They're trying to still figure out. I mean, looking at the cheap seats, but they're still trying to figure out fucking jeans. I'm like, Barbell Apparel's already had it figured out for years. What the fuck is wrong with you people? Absolutely. You know, just a flexible material that makes sense, that you could draw a gun from and it looks cool. Like, it doesn't have to be. Guys are simple. You
Absolutely.
know, guys are simple in construct. Make something that fits and makes sense and makes us look good when we go to dinner, and we're good.
Exactly.
Keep it simple.
Easy care, simple, and not over branded. I think that's a big thing for us too. It's like now the brand sells itself a little bit different. So like our printed items and, you know, t-shirts, hoodies, stuff like that, like they sell a ton.
Yeah.
However, it wasn't always like that. You know, the reason why we were selling stuff is because it's a specialty item and it wasn't over branded. You know, people didn't feel like they were representing something too much. Now people do want to represent it. So it's a little bit different market. It's just a different time, but that's just over years and years of, just pounding it, trying to get through it. But I draw inspiration from a lot of good companies that are out there. Like, I mean, like, there's so many good companies coming out. Like, and you think about, like, look at, like, was it 511 Tactical?
Mm-hmm.
Like, their shit's fucking crazy. And then they have, like, stores and stuff now. You know,
they got into that retail space. And that's why I said, I think there's something, I don't want to name, they haven't announced it, so I don't want to get into it. But there is a company I work with that they're going to do, and I do think that 511 had the right approach. They looked at hotbeds like Miami, Vegas. They looked at certain areas. And I think even for like a brand like yours, like in LA type, not LA, but maybe like, you know, Northern California, certain areas, Vegas, Miami might be logical. Like, we want to have a hub store. And what they do is, the reason it makes sense, they use them as a shipping hub too. They kind of piggyback on that to make it a little bit easier to ship product. And they create almost like a ship station. The store becomes like more of a storefront, like a smaller, like, yeah, you can buy our product here, but we're not gonna have the whole line there. But if you want something, you know, you can get it.
Logistically,
it makes sense, you know, because they're able to warehouse, because you need warehouses at the end of the day. You know, you're constantly buying warehouses. You know, you can't buy 17 warehouses in Arizona and just call it good. You know, it's like, you know, it gets hard logistically. So creating those logistical storefronts starts to make sense, you know, and it services the desire for the product in those hotbeds. I think, you know, for a brand to evolve and to continue to grow and to continue to take shape, you look at brands like you said, 511, especially in the tactical markets and how they've done things. But then there is a cost to being too big. You know, they say rising tides raise all ships at the price of the real estate, because the water tends to cover it. So, you know, you start to is underwear too much for us? Did we go too far? You know, so you have to kind of figure all those things out. You know, do we go full blown? Because you touch on those areas, but you don't go into them. Right. You'll touch on the tactical. You'll touch on this, you know, but, you know, you're not necessarily portraying yourself as like, this is where we are.
And yeah, that's a big. It's
a brush by.
Yeah, you kind of have to. In my opinion, I've always just looked at it as like, because you don't want to get labeled so heavily just one thing. Yeah. And it's like, I look at it as like, just from a brand building perspective, it's I almost represent myself, and the fact that it's like, I grew up on, you know, so many different genres of music, you know, and I wanted something that was able to touch all those things, but not be like, we're a hip hop brand, you know, or we're this brand, or like, you know, whatever you get into. And so it's nice to brush on those things. And then I think that a lot of times it just pigeonholes your market, really, you know, like say, for example, if you could just go way too heavily into tactical without thinking about the fact that it would be really good for, you know, outdoors. And they're not touching that, you know, or something like that. I'm not naming anyone because I don't even have an example, but I'm just saying.
Yeah, no, there's so many brands that they go full bore into that space and they dominate that space and they tend to be, the standard in that space, and they're successful. That's great. I think that's amazing. But when you're able to do it in so many different areas, it's more everlasting.
Like, it's dangerous to be like, yeah, we do this, but we're not a fishing brand.
Yeah.
You're like, no, you got to be open to those things. You got to be so just open-minded in general.
What's an area, I want to ask you this, because I know we're coming up on time, an hour and a half, but what's an area you'd love to be in, but you have no business being there? I'm curious what you'd say.
So I'm heavily inspired by high-end fashion, to be honest with you.
Sure.
I'm a super plain dude, but my goal in the future is to be able to travel and go everywhere. Like, I'd love to go to Fashion Week and see that kind of shit,
right?
Just because it inspires me. Now, am I gonna make shit like that? No. Like, I'm not the next like Chanel. Like, it's not gonna happen. I like where I'm at, but it's stuff like that is like I feel like I'm disservicing my customer if I ever was like the guy in Nordstrom. And I like that stuff. I like nice jeans. I like nice stuff. However, it's not for my people.
What about doing a flannel tie, though?
That could be done, but I fucking hate ties.
I do too. I do
like,
too.
I remember when I cut them all up, and I was like, I'm never fucking wearing.
But I feel like you're the type of guy you could do that, and it's a nod to your brand, but it's not the suit.
That's true. That's true.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, I feel like you could not, like, that in a pocket square is a nod to the suit, like a nod to the brand, but it's not the suit.
That's true. That's very true.
I just came up with an idea. I want 10%. I want 10%.
I'm really stoked that you didn't DM it to me, though.
No. You'd be like, who the fuck is this guy? I'm not going on his show. He's out of his mind. But I think, like, that's a way you could touch that market. It's a nod to it, but it's not. You're not condoning the suit, but you're saying
immersed into it.
Yeah, you're not immersed into it. That's where the doctor, the dentist, can buy it and consume it, and you're still not like, listen, I'm not crazy enough to say I'm going to make the suit.
It's like when you first start dating. You're just dating ideas.
Yeah, exactly.
You're dating genres.
Yeah. I don't think I get the hot chick, but I can get a friend. I can get her friend. And if I get the friend, there's a chance. There's a chance. I'm in the circle. Oh, but I think I think there are like little nods like that people do, and they do very successfully. And I look at brands like Lululemon, for example, and I see them, and I like their dress pants and stuff like that. Like, I know in the tactical community, a lot of guys will wear their stuff working, you know what I mean? And there is a reason for that. The flexibility, the stretch, they need something with comfort, but it still has an application. And that's what I think is the approach is, I think, still look at the application of it. They can still wear it. Cause I would have wore your shit to the White House. Are you kidding me? But I think that you could do that. And like I said, I think doing the suit might be a bridge too far right now.
Right. However, just to bring this up real quick, Lululemon is a great example. That is a great example of a great fucking brand made. And the reason why is because you would buy anything in their store because you know that you trust them. Yeah,
the quality.
Building that trust is like, that they're good at everything that they fucking do.
It's comfortable as fuck, too.
That's the reason why us as on the, e-commerce side, building trust is so fucking important. And so that's the reason why I can't let something go that's just 50% there. You can't do it just to throw your fucking logo on it and, and send it down the line. Everything you make has to be so fucking good, so fucking consistent, so that when they take a chance on a new product, they know
that shit's going
to be the best, and they become a client. Absolutely.
It's that continuity.
Absolutely.
Has there ever been anyone you saw wear your brand and you're like, holy shit, like you didn't even send them anything, and you're like, well, that's fucking crazy?
I'm trying to think of examples. There's been a lot, but it's trying to think of examples.
There's got to be one that grabbed you and you're like, whoa.
It's like Zach Brown from Zach Brown Band hit us up recently. That dude, RPM Neil, the knife maker guy. I met him at...
he's good friends with Bo Sandoval from the UFC. He's friends with him.
That guy is cool as fuck,
crazy,
man.
Right?
He's so cool. I met him and he's like, it's an honor to meet you. I was like, fucking kidding. I was like, shut the fuck up. I'm like, watching you just make this incredible shit, and I make t-shirts, man.
You're like, you know what I was doing last night? Like, what?
So it's like, we're gonna do some stuff with him soon, and like, you meet people like that, and they're like, when they love what you do,
it all levels up.
I'm like, man, I'm inspired as fuck by you, and you get to be around people like that and shoot the shit, and like that's that's the kind of shit that drives you, you know,
Yeah.
to be better for those people too, you know?
It blows my mind. Like when people come in here, they'll spend time looking at the pictures, the guests, people that have been on. They're in the back because I got pictures in the bathroom. They're looking everywhere, and they're like, "Holy shit!" Like you said, like, and I'm like, "Yeah, like it's like a steakhouse in here." I'm like, I'm like, "What do you want to do?"
You got all the good guys on the
yeah. I'm like, "Yeah, it's like whatever."
No, like I mean, like I said earlier, like I came and sat down here and I was like, "Man, you have fucking BJ Baldwin on your show." Like everything else is like, you know, especially after a night of fun in Vegas last night, I'm coming in here and I'm like, God damn it! Like I'm gonna be the most like understated guest, like the most.
No,
you know?
no, I'm telling
like,
you,
I'm honored. I'm so stoked to be here.
No,
I really appreciate it, man.
It's you build it, and it's like one of those things. And I look at every guest when they give me their time as truly an honor, and I'm like, I'm flattered that they're willing to spend an hour and a half, 2 hours, whatever as we go. And everybody that like, it always surprises me who people will message me or say that they want to see on. Like I got tagged in a few things. I try to look. And I do my best, and I'm always flattered by that. And, you know, when I reach out to people, I never know the response I'm going to get. They're like, podcast, another one of those. Like, what? But, you know, I've been working really hard to build something that supports the communities we love,
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely.
And try to honor those communities and just have conversations and put those out there. I think there's a lot of good shows out there. I think there's a lot of great shows out there. And I think there's just like there's a lot of good clothing brands. There's a lot of great shows. But I think there's a lot of you know, a lot of different, they service the genres differently. And I try to take the defense industry and what affects it. And I looked at you and I just know so many people. I mean, I can remember back 3 or 4 years ago, I had employees that are like, yeah, I bought this Dixon flannel. And I'm like, what? Like, what? You know, and that's when I first looked at it. And I remember I had bought one and it was like, I got it and it was yellow. And I was like, shit, I kind of look like a bumblebee. But I was like, this is cool, you know? And I remember being like, I'll wear this. And I wore it quite a bit because at the time I was living in Montana and I beat it up pretty good. But I remember being like, this is a thing in this industry. Like, this has become a thing.
It was really cool going to SHOT Show and like looking around and being like, holy shit. But at the same time, going to SHOT Show and being like, holy shit, there's a lot of people here that aren't wearing our shit. You know, it's like, it's eye-opening, you know?
Everybody I've taken a SHOT Show has said that is the biggest show I've ever been to in my life.
Overwhelming, man.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, I came in here like, I love guns. And I like walked down like 3 rows and I was like,
you spent $1 billion in your mind. In your mind. Thank God. You're like, thank God this isn't a buying show, right? That's what everybody says leaving. And to us in the industry, we in our head, we leave them like, I'm like, you know, you spend $1 million in your head. You're like, I'm going to buy this. I'm going to buy this.
You know whose videos I like the most about SHOT Show are these guys at me this table? The Rhino Medals.
Rhino Medals? Yeah.
So fucking funny.
Yeah. The Rhino, you know, it's funny when they outfitted this place, I was like, I ruptured my Achilles. I haven't talked about this story on air, but I ruptured my Achilles moving one of these things. True story, right? True story. I ruptured my Achilles moving one because this shit is so fucking strong.
It's insane, man.
It's insane.
They make such cool shit.
And it's amazing how much they sell because they're selling like $6,000 fucking tool chests. Yeah. You know, it's crazy. And I have that shit all in here. Like people come in, they're like, whoa, but you can't move it. Once it's down, it ain't moving. Yeah, it's for life.
Yeah, if you move out of this space, this fucking table ain't coming with you.
It's staying. Unless someone else moves it, it's staying. But yeah, them, Gallo Tech, there's so many brands that you just, and they represent like the small, it's hard to put this into audio context, right? They represent like the smallest spaces in SHOT Show. Like they're, you know, and then you go to SIG and it's like a city, you know, I grew up going there. It's like a city, you know, and I tell people all the time, like when you go there in New Hampshire, it's literally a town. I'm like, they run the whole town in Newington and Epping, you know, the whole academy is huge. But you know, it's each one of those represent jobs, it's a huge genre. Absolutely. It's huge, you know. I think the only other bigger show I've seen, well, SEMA because it takes up so much space, the cars, but like maybe NAB, like the broadcasting show is really cool to go to. There's a few, but the concrete workers, I think, is the biggest, right? The Builders Association. Those fucking concrete guys are ridiculous. They might work with their hands, but those motherfuckers got some big boot space. I mean, they got mixers, and it makes you want to go buy a cement mixer.
Right.
And when you live in Vegas, like you go to all that shit like a giant, Dixon cement mixer outside.
I need one of those.
Yeah, that's what it is. Like you go to those RV shows. Like I used to go to the Great American Outdoor Show in Pennsylvania. You go to like shows like that. You start thinking like, I need that crazy RV. In your mind, you just justified it. You're like, we need that.
Like that hammock fits in my fucking pocket.
What?
I have to have one of those.
Like you start saying, and that's where like the term like concept stuff. Like that's why if you go to like a fashion or like something, you could pull out all the stops. You can get crazy because you're like, what? Like a dog leash that turns into a raincoat that has the shit bags in it? Are you kidding me? We need 5 of those in Dixon. Like, you're like, what? We need a hat with cold ears and everything else. Like you start getting crazy. What? A raincoat that becomes a regular jacket that would flip inside out that we do. That's what those shows are for, though. I mean, you start getting weird. The biggest joke I make in the gun industry, and I don't want to go on a tangent because we got to wrap, but is like in the gun industry, you'll start being like, what? A pouch for my monster, for my what? We need 3 of those, and we need it to say Dixon on it, and we need a patch, and the patch comes off.
Gotta have the patch.
You gotta have the patch. That's when you start getting crazy, But I don't think anything's beyond the realm of possibility for your brand, and I do think you can touch the genres deeper. And I'd love to see, selfishly, like flannel gun bags or something. Like there's some shit, man, that I think we could talk about when the mic's off, because I think we could do some wild shit, and it's all selfish endeavors for me. But I love the brand, and I love what you're doing, man. And I'm honored, and I'd be honored if you'd say you'd come back in a year or whenever.
Hey, man,
you're in
I'd
town.
fucking love to come back.
You use me as an excuse anytime to come to Vegas.
I love it.
I mean it. And I'd like you to buy into the shop, to be quite honest with you, because I think you need a business out here.
No, it's been great, man. You've been. And we just talked for like 2 fucking hours. It was easy as hell.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it.
I love it, man.
I appreciate you coming out. Let everybody know where they can find you if they haven't heard of you, and let everybody know where the website and all the things.
If you need to find me, you can find my Instagram at Danny Dixon, Dixxon. And then Dixon Flannel Company on Instagram, Dixxon, and that should all come up. If you guys are in Canada or Australia, we also have both websites and your own social media for those. And everything can be found at Dixon.com, Dixxon.com.
Well, I appreciate it. I appreciate you taking the time. And to everybody listening, please leave a review. And I can't thank you enough.
Honor, brother. Thank you for having me.
It means a lot. And I tell every guest that, and I truly do mean it from the bottom of my heart. When you take the time to get in your car and take the ride or drive or fly, I don't know. Took a helicopter here for all I know, but I'll speedboat on boat on land. Next time we'll be in the chopper. Yeah, but it means a lot, and I appreciate it. So
likewise, man. Thank you so much.
I want to thank everybody. I want to thank all the sponsors. Head over to www.johnbartoloshow.com. Appreciate all the sponsors. Appreciate everybody that supports the show. Can't thank you guys enough. Couldn't do it without you. And we are out.